welcome to a new episode of Gallery Watch. We are today at the Moores Building here in Fremantle to see the exhibition As Is by Ross Potter. Let's see what is in here. So Ross, could you please tell us how this passion for illustration started?
Really started at a very young age as a teenager, but put it aside for quite a long time, and then really when I moved to Fremantle it came back in quite a big way, where I just noticed so many things here that I wanted to draw and capture before they changed or how they've changed, and really sort of working the past 5 years at capturing that, yeah.
You are originally from Brisbane.
Yes.
What it brought you here to Fremantle?
Oh, it's an old favourite musician of mine, Karis Thompson. He'd play a lot in Brisbane and he'd tell us stories about Fremantle, and then that pretty much inspired me to really have a look at the place. Came here for a few months and was travelling on to Europe, but decided to cancel my ticket and stay and check it out. Yeah, and that's been about 8 years now, yeah.
What was the building you fell first in love with and then you made it part of your future artwork?
Well, it was a fight between two of them. So first it was originally the powerhouse. It made me want to just try and capture every little thing that's happened to it, from how all of it together just makes one communal artwork, I think. And then also the Cliff Street facade, or some people know it as the wedding facade. How this town has just preserved this facade, but with a car park behind it, it showed me there were certain lengths they're willing to go to, and I really wanted to capture these odd things because they're really quite hard to understand, especially coming from a place of Brisbane where a lot of stuff gets lost quite quickly, and we did lose a lot of our almost heritage sort of places, and it's very unrecognisable for me now when I go back. But yeah, just really the density of the town, of how much is in just one sitting, and seeing the Cliff Street facade at the end, has always found it very fascinating, that little facade, yeah.
What has been the most challenging part of this exhibition?
Probably trying to decide which buildings to include and which ones not to include. There's so many buildings around Fremantle that have been affected by the creative industries, and so it was really hard to narrow it down to these few that we selected. We ended up focusing on buildings that have been affected by visual arts. Because otherwise, there's so many. There's Spare Parts Puppet Theatre, there's the Fly By Night. It's a really artistic town, so that was probably the biggest challenge in the deciding.
Are there still more pieces which have not been exhibited this time? Is that what you mean?
No. When we were curating the show, Ross and I spoke together and decided on, a bit of a hit list of the main buildings that he wanted to target. So this time around he's done these ones. He does have a few works from previous exhibitions that have a slightly more varied subject, different buildings and things that he's done in the past. But for this exhibition it's just these ones here.
Thank you very much, Pettitt, for giving us some of your time at this exhibition, As Is by Ross Potter. I believe that this exhibition touches your heart very closely. Why?
Yeah, it is because it touches me because one of those exhibitions that I think is all my favourite things is by a great Fremantle artist, but drawing extraordinarily beautiful and intricate and delicate drawings of beautiful Fremantle artistic icons, all the way from your traditional ones like the Fremantle Arts Centre at the other end of the spectrum, all the way through to the South Fremantle Power Station and the like. It's got the best of Freo.
Not using colours, it is one challenging part of your work, to infuse your art pieces with brightness and soul. How do you cope with that?
Well, probably the best way is, I find that what the graphite really does is focuses strongly on the character of the buildings and really just the contrast. So in that way I can actually tell a deeper story and really leave the colours out of it and just show every little bit of character, yeah.
In one of your most popular pieces in this exhibition, the dingo, the fact that you don't use colours, was it hard to actually show the damage that the time has done in the actual painting?
I think with that one, it was more about pushing right past the logo and actually looking at the degradation of the wall itself. And I found that actually helped me push past the colour and actually show a lot more of basically the rust. And I heard they were going to change it soon, so I really wanted to capture it how we know it now and hopefully document that little important time that we all recognise it at before it gets changed.
Can you tell us what has been the working process to get this exhibition together?
Well, it all starts with what's going to inspire it. So what really got me is after I finished my first exhibition, I noticed how much the wool stores had changed. And aesthetically, it was beautiful to look at. I understand they had to board it up, but then the council went about a really creative way of boarding it up, so using the zigzag patterns. And that really spoke with me, so I thought I wanted to try and draw it now, noticing only in a matter of a few years how much different it had become. And then once I did that first piece, and then I realised the creative world has changed these buildings so much, even from the art galleries to the street art, everything. It's just all been changed so much, and using diverse ways to reuse a lot of them. And that's what this show was really about, was getting that in. So once I had that inspiration, it was just a matter of spending the rest of the year drawing them. So,
do you think there will be room in 20 years' time to revise all this work?
It would be a fascinating exhibition to do a retrospective with these works that show Fremantle as it was in 2015 versus how it might look, in 2035. Because what he's done here is it's both art, but it's also an historical expression of how Fremantle is at this moment of change.
Yes, absolutely. The buildings have already changed so much. In the 5 years that Ross has been working, they have really changed already. As Brad said in his speech, buildings like the wool stores change every week. So I think definitely, given another 10, 20 years, there will be more to come for sure.
What is the most challenging part of your artwork?
the time consume. It takes me a long time to put an exhibition together, so we've learned to combat that by, we've planned our exhibitions up to 2017 now. But working on smaller projects from home to fill the year up while I do the big works in the studio. But I'd say the time and the resources, I find a lot of my equipment I have to source from out of the country or across the east, and that's really hard being in a town like Fremantle and just not having the equipment available when you're trying to reduce kilometres on everything you do, and being inspired by the sustainability projects they have here. So looking into diverse ways of that, but yeah, I'd say it's the time and the equipment I find the hardest to, my biggest challenges. And I can have a concept, but it has to be developed over at least a 12-month period. So that really rules out a lot of extracurricular work that I want to do, say commissions or things like that. There's a lot of jobs I have to turn down, mostly, unfortunately. But I usually leave gaps after my exhibition to open up for those sort of things. I'll have it 2 months, I'm sort of blocked off and wait for other opportunities to come to me, and then I'll get back into the next project. So time management is the crucial part of what I do, yeah.
Ellie, you are the responsible for the dancing performance tonight. What can you tell us about it?
So we felt that we wanted to really create an evening that was more than just artworks hanging on the wall. We really wanted to create an event that people would talk about for the next week. And we really feel that each of the buildings here has a soul. They each have a character and they have a history, and people are changing it constantly, but their soul stays the same. And so we wanted to incorporate that in the performance art and use the dancers as a bit of a representation of those buildings and their soul and their history and how they're constantly adapting.
Ross, this is your favourite piece. Could you please tell us why it's so special for you?
I think just getting inside this place and seeing the amount of activity that goes on inside it, and as the rest of the show goes, this was a much more refreshing view to draw, so much more internal, can really pull you in. But really just capturing the lengths that they go to do their art in there, so getting up into the beams and just the heights that they get to, and the sort of danger aspect to it, and amount of graffiti that can happen in all of the odd spots, yeah. So it really is a great documentation of what goes on inside the powerhouse, I feel. Yeah.
Okay. Could you please explain us the technique you use to produce these impressive images?
Yeah, so it's the heavy watercolour paper that can give it I can really be quite rough with the heavy watercolour paper. Using the graphite pencils, they can be very damaging, but they just get such a depth going on with them. And using a lot of really interesting sort of techniques, like actually erasing more than I'm actually drawing in some parts, and yeah, just trying to really pull the character out of the building is the biggest aspect for me, yeah. So the pencils really work for me in that respect, I think, yeah. Also, yeah, just trying to use odd styles of photographing to use my reference photo. Trying to pull it away from just the normal sort of style of photographing is one of my other techniques to try and grab that vivid sort of image, yeah.
I believe this is the piece which has taken you the longest to
Yes.
finish, right?
Yes.
How much time have you spent in this particular one?
There's probably about 3 months worth of work into this one, so that's the longest out of the whole show. Really just because of the structural aspects in it, and the vanishing point was quite strong. So everything had to fit, it all had to be right. And every shadow meets up with every beam, everything is connected in here. So it was a matter of trying to really find out and really ground myself where it was and where it's going to work.
When you went inside, did it take you long to find the perspective you wanted to show in this painting?
Yeah, I took a few shots around. You have to be pretty quick in there, but our philosophy is to only leave footsteps, or footprints, sorry. Yeah, so we usually spend probably about 20 minutes and just get as many shots as we can, and then just try and get out as smoothly as possible, yeah.
We're going for a short break, but don't go away. We'll show you more of As Is here in Moore's Building in Fremantle for Gallery Watch, the exhibition by Ross Potter. Welcome back to Gallery Watch. Here we are with the Fremantle icon Dingo at the exhibition As Is in Moore's Building in Fremantle, the exhibition by Ross Potter. Brought you here tonight to the exhibition As Is by Ross Potter.
I just wanted to see what Ross had been up to. They're beautiful drawings, and it's part of Fremantle's heritage, and they're just quite exquisite.
Facebook, basically. I had an invite from Ellen, Ross's partner. I didn't know what to expect. I thought I was looking at photographs, and I can't believe the quality of the work. It's amazing. It's just so intricate.
Well, there's such iconic buildings that have been photographed by the photographer that I have done some work for as of last week. I did some auctioneering of these photographs for Rethink the Link, actually, but it was nice to get an invite tonight and to see here in the heart of Fremantle a real different take on some very iconic buildings around our city.
What can you tell us about the Fremantle art scene in general, for you and for all the artists? What does Fremantle have so special to attract all these beautiful art activity?
Oh, it's amazing. It's really quite a unique hub. I found it's listening to Jared Singh talk about it the other day at his exhibition, and it's really, when he said it, he's been a lot around the world, as we've seen from his photography, that it doesn't actually exist that often, and so I haven't really got involved in the art scene around the country, especially around the world. But I noticed it's just such a very diverse range. I think due to our isolation here, we sort of are forced to be more diverse, and we only survive with that diversity. So I think that's probably the biggest key to how Fremantle's little hub works, and the competitiveness is lost. I think a lot of us will really stick together, and your business only grows because of that. Your careers will only get stronger, and I think a lot of the people in Freo have seen that, and it's worked in the past, and that's why this has become such a unique arts hub. Also, the amount of unused buildings available that have been turned into arts hubs they're great. They're great places for artists to work, and they usually are quite affordable. And especially for me, in this scene in Fremantle, I get to draw the town that I actually spend most days in. So it's actually a very inspiring town, if anything at that, whether the attitudes or just the town aesthetically. But yeah, there's a lot of great art projects around, a lot of things available, and it can get a bit daunting. A lot of opportunities happen on the eastern states, but a lot of people, like the Black Swan Awards, Portrait Awards, were started because there was nothing for WA artists. So things like that, people just think, okay, what's missing here? They've seen the hole in the market, so they create it. People just are so self-driven over here, and it's really inspiring. Yeah.
What has brought you here tonight to As Is exhibition?
Well, I have a business just up the road in High Street, so I heard this exhibition was on, and I love pencil drawings and graphic art like this. My daughter, in fact, is a graphic artist. So I'm here, and I think this exhibition is beautiful. This building here, which is absolutely iconic, and somebody in the government and the councils are going to do some really nasty things with it, I fear. But it should be brought back to its original beauty and should be a public building. And it should be there forever.
Well, I'm quite good friends with both Ross and Ellen, his lovely partner, and they've kindly invited us this evening to see the exhibition.
What is your favourite piece of the whole exhibition?
It would actually be this one here. I just think that the actual detail in the artwork is amazing. It's quite beautiful.
I think probably the dingo flour mill. It's one of those items which is iconic to Fremantle and recognisable, probably much larger than the Fremantle area.
Yeah, there's just such a beautiful spot on the beach, and this already they've done a lot of work around here, so this is also one of the ones that's changed just very recently. Being the original lunatic asylum, I believe they call it, and now being art studios and a gallery, it sort of shows how really much we can actually change these things. And yeah, we all know it as the Fremantle Arts Centre now, but the reason I still find it very haunting in there, even though inside is very different. So that's why we've called it air, because I feel like the air you're breathing is still the same air that was there 100 years ago. So it still feels a little eerie and a little creepy, but the walls would suggest very otherwise with the colours and the artworks that go up there, yeah.
My favourite ones, I think, really are actually some of the ones that talk about the more ephemeral parts of Freo art, like the ones that talk around the Goldsboro wool stores, where every day it changes, the graffiti changes, but what Ross has done in his work is shown it as it is today, for a moment, but it will change and it will evolve.
This piece, actually, the dingo, it's something that you see every day you go to the beach. It's iconic for Western Australia. It's something that's iconic but not built to be a tourist attraction or something like that, just something that you grow up seeing every day, every time you...
I think my favourite is probably Vent, the inside of the power station. The view looking out over the balcony down past the power station. I think that one's my favourite, but it's really hard to choose.
My favourite piece is the dingo flower, because that's just being reconstructed or touched up, I believe, too. It's a bit of an iconic piece in Fremantle.
Difficult question. So far, it's good to see the old power station. It's obviously an iconic building, which is it's been in the news. You know, what's going to happen to it, what should happen to it, these sorts of things. It's a bit of an issue for debate, but it's nice to see it in its present form, nice and big on the far wall over there.
In this exhibition, you have sold pretty much all your art pieces, which is fantastic. But at the same time, don't you feel that you are giving away part of your soul with each piece that has been sold?
It's something I've had to learn to let go of. It's sort of, I feel a lot of the pieces are going to public spaces, offices and such, so you feel a lot better about that. I really feel they belong in Fremantle and around. If I used to get a lot attached to my earlier works, but now I've got them forever and I'm kind of stuck with them. So I've learned to just let go of them, and the more I'm willing to let go of them, the more works I'm actually going to create. So if, just say my studio's getting quite full and I've got a lot of pieces in there, it's harder to make more space and more time to keep drawing them. But yeah, I think a lot of our clients have become good friends, so we'll always see them, they'll always be around, we'll know what's happening with the pieces. So yeah, letting go was a big push for me, hard to just get them out there, yeah.
I think the amount of time it must have taken to create these works, I can't even imagine. People just don't have that sort of dedication these days. a lot of spontaneity and fast, instant gratification. This is amazing work, really, really beautiful. And it's all buildings I recognise around Fremantle, so it's very local. I love it. I love the Dingo Factory. And this is one of my favourites. I've taken many photographs of this building. You can't quite see the graffiti on it, but it's just beautiful. All the broken windows, incredibly intricate. Well done, Ross.
This series of 3 images called
Feminal, yep.
They have a very interesting story behind. What can you tell us about these 3 ones?
Well, getting this side of the old wool stores is probably the biggest key for the exhibition. It sort of shows the amount of pile-up of art that can happen and the amount of sort of battles that seem to happen with these flags. But the flags are all nautical lettering, so they all spell Fremantle. There's 9 of them in total. I couldn't do the 9 of them. It would be much too big of a piece, so we decided just to pick the A, the R and the T. So just to spell out art really, and the Aboriginal flag was originally the A, so it works out well that it still was the A of the piece. So yeah, and hence we called it Feminal, taking the art out of Fremantle. Yeah.
What impresses you most of his technique?
I guess the detail, the amazing detail. They look like lithograph engravings, from the old-fashioned days. I mean, I can't believe that he's actually spent this much time creating such incredible detail. Fascinating. And I have very little patience myself. I take photographs and I like to, I'm a frustrated artist that doesn't know how to paint or draw. So I'm totally, in awe of anybody that can do this quality of work. It's amazing.
Well, the technique of adding the realism by different strokes and different weights of use of the pencil makes something which is quite extraordinary in its realism, which can't really be made by colours and paint, which don't have the finality of the small point of a pencil.
I don't really see things in colour so much, so I find if I don't have the exact colour, it wouldn't tell the right story. So the neutrals really, I feel, tell the story of the character and pull that out. Almost black and white photography versus colour photography, I suppose, as well.
Have you had a go using colour anyway?
Yeah, I did 2 little pieces up in York, just having a practice with colour, and it was fun, but I just noticed with pencils you only have limited colours, or you can buy the big ranges, which gets a bit expensive. But so I'll play around every now and then, but I don't see much graphite drawing around, so it's really working my advantage that it's a bit more unique.
This is the biggest piece in the exhibition, torn, and I think that it reflects perfectly what you want to transmit. What can you tell us about this building?
Well, this was me really working with this style of photography and pushing it out. So we compiled about 37 photographs just to really capture a documentation, quite an accurate documentation of the building. You can't normally see it from one view, so we really wanted to try and get the whole building in. And yeah, I started buying my paper on a roll, so let's see how big we can go. And 2.4 metres is the biggest we can fit down my stairs at the studios, so we can't go much bigger than that. But yeah, so it was really, and filling a space like the Moores building, you really have to think about size, and I like to keep things minimal, so the size had to be pushed out, and this was the more challenging sort of aspect to try and do. And yeah, it was quite a big investment to do it, but it was well worth the while. And yeah, so if this building is going to change soon, which there's a lot of proposals that it might, hopefully I've caught it at this point in time and everyone can remember it from that. So yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this exhibition, as is by Ross Potter, as much as we did, and learn a little bit more about the heritage buildings of Fremantle. This is Laura Novo for Gallery Watch. See you next week, same time, same channel.